When it comes to opposition, Mexican drug cartels don't play. They will hunt you down and end you. In this video, you'll see El Michoacano tortured on camera, Coqui Cazares decapitated, El Cholo betrayed by his own. Here are 10 gang leaders killed by the cartel. Adolfo Mendoza Valencia, El Michoacano. The year was 2019. The streets of Guanajuato had become a battleground for two rival cartels. At the center of this conflict was Adolfo Mendoza Valencia, known as El Michoacano, a high-ranking member of the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel. El Michoacano wasn't just any cartel operative. He was a key figure in the cartel's huachicoleo, or illegal fuel theft operations. Under Jose Antonio Yepes Ortiz, El Maro, the cartel had established a foothold in Guanajuato, but faced an increasingly aggressive rival, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJN. The CJN, led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, had been expanding across Mexico with ruthless efficiency. Guanajuato, with its valuable fuel pipelines and strategic location, was a prize they couldn't ignore. In August 2019, the CJN captured Mendoza Valencia in Valle de Santiago. What followed was a calculated display of brutality designed to send a message throughout Mexico's criminal underworld. El Michoacano was bound to a chair, his face bearing the marks of severe beatings. In front of a camera, CJN members forced him to confess to extortion and murder. The video, which quickly spread on social media, showed a man broken physically but still defiant in spirit. After the interrogation, Mendoza Valencia disappeared. Hours later, motorists found his body hanging from a highway overpass, a narcomanta or cartel message placed nearby. The message was clear: this is what happens to those who oppose the CJNG. The execution marked a significant escalation in the war between the cartels. The video spread fear throughout Guanajuato, fear that the CJN exploited to strengthen their regional hold. For law enforcement, the case presented a familiar challenge: gathering evidence where witnesses refused to speak out of fear. Despite the public nature of the execution, the investigation faced significant obstacles. In the aftermath, the CJN continued to gain ground, weakening the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel's control. Smaller gangs, once aligned with El Michoacano, found themselves forced to choose sides or face similar fates. This pattern of cartel dominance through public displays of violence would soon repeat itself in another region of Mexico, this time within the Sinaloa cartel itself. Coqui Cazares, March 2025. The sun rose over Culiacan, the heartland of Mexico's most infamous cartel. For decades, the Sinaloa cartel had reigned under Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, but with El Chapo serving a life sentence, the cartel's unity had begun to fracture. Coqui Cazares, a trusted financial operator for Los Chapitos, the faction led by El Chapo's sons, was about to become a casualty of this internal conflict. Los Chapitos were locked in a power struggle with La Maíza, led by Ismael Zambada Sicairos, Mayito Flaco. Cazares wasn't just another foot soldier. He was a key financial strategist, managing money flows from fentanyl trafficking operations. In the cartel world, money managers are the lifeblood of the organization. La Maíza, intent on sending a message to Los Chapitos, didn't just kill Cazares, they filmed his decapitation. The video showed Cazares confessing under duress before facing a brutal end. What made this execution significant was that it wasn't just an attack on an individual, it was a direct challenge to the sons of El Chapo. By targeting their financial operator and spreading the video on social media, La Maíza was publicly declaring war. On March 25, 2025, Culiacan residents were met with a horrifying sight: Cazares' dismembered remains displayed in front of Plaza Forum, a popular shopping center. Alongside was a narcomanta signed MF, the initials of Mayito Flaco. The execution intensified the internal conflict within the Sinaloa cartel. The residents of Culiacan, already accustomed to cartel violence, found themselves caught in the crossfire of a war that would claim dozens of lives. For law enforcement, the killing provided valuable intelligence about the fracturing of the Sinaloa cartel. The DEA noted that such public displays indicated a significant breakdown in the cartel's previously hierarchical structure. Cazares' death highlighted a disturbing trend: the use of social media to spread execution videos. Platforms like X became battlegrounds where cartels delivered messages directly to the public, creating a new psychological warfare combining ancient brutality with modern technology. This fragmentation within the Sinaloa cartel would continue to claim lives, as illustrated by the fate of another cartel leader just months earlier. Manuel Villicana Pacheco, El Grande, July 2024. For Manuel Villicana Pacheco, known as El Grande or Chuy El Largo, this day marked what should have been a new beginning, his release from prison after serving time for his role in the Sinaloa cartel. El Grande wasn't just another foot soldier, he was a regional leader for the Los Salguero faction, overseeing operations in parts of Chihuahua State. His imprisonment had created a power vacuum. As the prison gates opened on July 20th, Villicana Pacheco took his first steps toward freedom. Family members waited to greet him, unaware that others were watching with deadlier intentions. What happened next was captured by security cameras footage that would soon spread across social media. A vehicle approached him as he walked away from the prison. Initially appearing to offer a ride, the vehicle suddenly became a death trap. Gunmen emerged, throwing El Grande to the ground before executing him in broad daylight. According to investigations, the hit was ordered by another leader known only as L21, pointing to internal divisions within the Sinaloa cartel. The cartel, once united under El Chapo, had fragmented following his imprisonment. By eliminating him immediately upon release, his rivals ensured he wouldn't have the opportunity to reclaim his territory or rebuild his network. Law enforcement's response was swift but limited. One suspect, a municipal police officer, was detained, and a vehicle involved was secured. This connection between local law enforcement and cartel violence highlighted the pervasive corruption hampering Mexico's fight against organized crime. The video of El Grande's execution was posted on X by @blog del Narcomex. The circulation of such graphic content is a hallmark of modern cartel tactics, using social media to spread fear and demonstrate power. In the aftermath, violence in Chihuahua escalated as rival factions fought to fill the power vacuum. Civilian casualties mounted, and local businesses faced increased extortion demands. This pattern of internal conflict wasn't unique to the Sinaloa cartel. Similar factional struggles were tearing apart one of Mexico's oldest criminal organizations just a few hundred miles to the east. Alias El Cherry, December 2023. The border city of Reynosa had long been a flashpoint in Mexico's drug war. Located across from McAllen, Texas, the city serves as a crucial crossing point for drugs heading north and weapons and cash flowing south. For years, the city had been firmly in the grip of the Gulf Cartel, one of Mexico's oldest criminal organizations. But the Gulf Cartel had splintered into various factions, including Los Metros and Grupo Escorpion, Scorpion Group. In this volatile environment, a cartel figure known only as El Cherry had risen to prominence within the Metros faction. His actual name remains unknown in public records. El Cherry's rise would be cut short when he was captured by members of the rival Grupo Escorpion faction. What followed was a calculated display of brutality designed to humiliate his faction and demonstrate Grupo Escorpion's growing power. The execution was filmed and released by Grupo Escorpion, later shared by accounts like @all_source_news on X. Like many such videos, it combined forced confession with extreme violence, creating content designed to maximize psychological impact. El Cherry's case highlighted the internal fracturing of the Gulf Cartel. The conflict between Los Metros and Grupo Escorpion was more than just a turf war. It represented the Gulf Cartel's loss of cohesion. The execution took place against the backdrop of a broader struggle for control of the Lázaro Cárdenas area in Reynosa. By eliminating a key Metros operative publicly, Grupo Escorpion was making a territorial claim and sending a message to remaining Metros members: switch sides or face a similar fate. Law enforcement's response was hampered by corruption, intimidation of witnesses, and jurisdictional challenges. While an investigation was launched, little progress was made in bringing those responsible to justice. In the weeks following, violence in Reynosa escalated as Los Metros launched retaliatory attacks. Civilians paid the highest price. Businesses closed, schools suspended classes, and residents avoided going out after dark. This pattern of factional violence within once unified cartels would repeat itself further west, where another major criminal organization was experiencing its own internal schism. Carlos Enrique Sanchez Martinez, El Cholo, March 2021. The state of Jalisco had become the epicenter of Mexico's evolving drug war. The rise of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJN, under Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, had transformed the criminal landscape throughout Mexico. But even the seemingly monolithic CJN had experienced internal divisions. One significant rift led to the formation of the Nueva Plaza Cartel, a splinter group allegedly backed by the Sinaloa cartel to challenge CJN's dominance.
January 11th, 2020. During a wedding ceremony, Karem Yepes Ortiz, the bride, was mercilessly shot in the head by her rivals who also abducted her groom.
At the center of this schism was Carlos Enrique Sanchez Martinez, El Cholo, a former high-ranking CJANG member who had defected to form his own organization. This betrayal made him one of El Mencho's most hated enemies. El Cholo's fate was sealed in March 2021. After years of conflict between his Nueva Plaza cartel and the CJANG, he was captured by his former comrades. What followed was a carefully orchestrated psychological operation, combining traditional cartel brutality with sophisticated media manipulation. Before his execution, El Cholo was forced to record a video confession. Visibly beaten, he admitted to collaborating with authorities and betraying his former allies. The confession hit at the heart of cartel culture, the unforgivable sin of becoming an informant. The video circulated widely on social media before El Cholo's body was found in Tlacopac, in the Guadalajara metropolitan area. When his corpse was discovered in Jardín Hidalgo, a public plaza, it was accompanied by a narcomanta attributing the killing to the CJANG. The public execution served multiple purposes. For the CJANG, it was a demonstration of their reach and power, proof that no betrayal would go unpunished. For potential rivals or defectors, it was a chilling warning about the consequences of challenging El Mencho's authority. El Cholo's death had significant implications for power dynamics in western Mexico. The Nueva Plaza cartel lost its primary leader and struggled to maintain cohesion. The CJANG consolidated its control over key methamphetamine production areas. Law enforcement's response was hampered by the same challenges that characterize many cartel investigations: a lack of witnesses willing to come forward, jurisdictional complications, and the rapid disappearance of perpetrators into the CJANG's vast network. While Mexico's cartels battled for control within its borders, their reach extended far beyond, as one South African gang leader would soon discover. Peter Jaggers. Early 2024, thousands of miles from Mexico in Cape Town, South Africa, a different kind of cartel story was unfolding. This one involved Peter Jaggers, the leader of the Terrible Joesters Gang, a criminal organization with over 10,000 members stretching across the Western Cape. Jaggers had established himself as a trusted middleman for international drug traffickers, facilitating the movement of cocaine from South American cartels to European markets via South Africa. His reliability made him a valuable partner for both Colombian cartels and Bulgarian crime syndicates. In March 2024, Jaggers made a decision that would set in motion a chain of events leading to his brutal end. R1 billion, approximately $50 million cocaine shipment, arranged between a Colombian cartel and Bulgarian mafia, was dropped off the coast of Simonstown. Jaggers was responsible for retrieving it and ensuring its safe delivery to the Bulgarians. What actually transpired was far more calculated. Jaggers had sent a crew to stage a distress call, claiming their boat had run out of fuel while fishing. Once rescued, they reported the shipment lost. Meanwhile, a second boat, staffed with Jaggers' most trusted men, retrieved the cocaine and disappeared. For 2 months, an uneasy calm prevailed. Then, in June 2024, a call came from a man with a Bulgarian accent, inviting Jaggers to Johannesburg for a meeting to discuss the shipment. Against his better judgment, Jaggers agreed. On June 30th, Jaggers and his right-hand man, William Peterson, arrived at OR Tambo International Airport. They were picked up and taken to Emperor's Palace Hotel, where they checked in for what would be their final night as free men. The two men were abducted by representatives of both the Colombian cartel and Bulgarian mafia. Jaggers was taken to South America, his wife receiving chilling WhatsApp voice notes demanding either the return of the cocaine or a payment of 50 million rand. Desperate attempts to negotiate fell on deaf ears. For 3 months, Jaggers and Peterson vanished. Then, on October 11th, 2024, their fate was revealed in the most gruesome manner. The bodies of Jaggers and Peterson were discovered in the Klip River near Orangeville. They showed clear signs of torture, handcuffed, bound with cable ties, bearing the marks of brutal justice. Jaggers' distinctive tattoos, including one reading "International Crook," confirmed his identity. The execution of Peter Jaggers highlighted the increasingly global nature of cartel operations and their willingness to pursue vengeance across continents. It also demonstrated the sophisticated psychological tactics employed by modern cartels, using social media and messaging apps to communicate threats directly to family members. While civilian authorities often struggled against the cartels, the Mexican government had occasionally scored significant victories through direct military action against cartel leadership. Arturo Beltran Leyva, El Jefe de Jefesa, December 2009. The upscale altitude residential complex in Cuernavaca, Morelos, seemed an unlikely battlefield. Yet it would become the site of one of the most significant operations in Mexico's drug war, a confrontation that would end the reign of Arturo Beltran Leyva, known as El Jefe de Jefes, the boss of bosses. Beltran Leyva was the head of the powerful Beltran Leyva cartel, an organization that had split from the Sinaloa cartel following his brother Alfredo's arrest in 2008, an arrest that Arturo blamed on betrayal by El Chapo Guzman. This split had triggered one of the bloodiest chapters in Mexico's cartel wars. The Mexican government, under President Felipe Calderón's aggressive strategy against drug trafficking, had made Beltran Leyva a priority target. Intelligence had tracked him to the luxury apartment complex in Cuernavaca. Over 200 Mexican Marines, supported by helicopters and armored vehicles, surrounded the building. What followed was a full-scale urban battle that lasted for hours. Beltran Leyva and his bodyguards, armed with assault rifles and grenades, fought back fiercely, determined not to be taken alive. The gunfight was deafening, with bullet casings littering the pristine hallways. Residents cowered in their apartments, trapped in a war zone that had suddenly materialized in their neighborhood. As the battle raged, Beltran Leyva found himself increasingly cornered. His bodyguards fell one by one until he stood alone against the Marine Special Forces. The 48-year-old cartel leader died as he had lived, violently with a gun in his hand. His bullet-riddled body, stripped to the waist and covered with money bills, a final humiliation, was photographed, and the images circulated widely. The death of Arturo Beltran Leyva was a significant victory for the Mexican government, but it came at a terrible cost. Just days after the operation, the family of one of the Marines involved, Melquisedec Angulo Cordova, was massacred in retaliation. Moreover, Beltran Leyva's death accelerated the fragmentation of his cartel, leading to even more bloodshed as lieutenants fought for control. The power vacuum created by his absence gave rise to smaller, more volatile groups, each desperate to establish dominance. For President Calderón's administration, the killing of Beltran Leyva was presented as evidence that the kingpin strategy was working. Yet critics pointed to the subsequent spike in violence as proof that the approach was flawed, merely replacing established cartels with more aggressive and unpredictable offshoots. This pattern would repeat itself 3 years later with another high-profile military operation against one of Mexico's most feared cartel leaders. Heriberto Lascano, El Verdugo, October 7, 2012. In the small coal mining town of Progreso, Coahuila, Heriberto Lascano, one of Mexico's most feared cartel leaders, was enjoying a baseball game, temporarily letting his guard down. Known as El Verdugo, the executioner, he was the supreme commander of Los Zetas, perhaps the most brutally violent criminal organization in Mexico's history. Los Zetas wasn't just another cartel, it was a paramilitary organization founded by former elite special forces soldiers who had defected to work as enforcers for the Gulf Cartel before breaking away. Under Lascano's leadership, they had pioneered new levels of savagery, introducing beheadings and mass killings as signature tactics. According to legend, Lascano kept a collection of lions and tigers, feeding them the bodies of his enemies. Whether true or not, such stories contributed to the aura of terror that surrounded him. On that October day, a Mexican Navy patrol, acting on a tip about armed men at the baseball game, encountered him and a small group of associates. What should have been a routine check escalated when Lascano and his men opened fire on the Marines. In the ensuing gunfight, Lascano was killed along with one of his bodyguards. The Marines had no idea who they had eliminated until they ran fingerprint checks on the body, but the story took a bizarre turn hours later. Before the government could secure the body, armed commandos stormed the funeral home where it was being kept and stole the corpse. This brazen act led to immediate skepticism about whether Lascano had actually been killed. The Mexican Navy stood by its claim, releasing details of the autopsy and fingerprint matches. Eventually, DNA testing of tissue samples taken before the body was stolen provided further confirmation. El Verdugo was truly dead. The death of Heriberto Lascano had significant implications. Without their founder and leader, Los Zetas began to splinter, with different factions fighting for control. This internal conflict, coupled with pressure from rival cartels and government forces, gradually diminished the organization's power. For the Mexican government, Lascano's death was a significant victory in their war against the cartels. Yet, as with other kingpin takedowns, it also led to increased instability and violence in the regions where the Zetas operated. The bizarre circumstances of Lascano's death and the theft of his body added a layer of myth-making to an already larger-than-life figure. Even in death, El Verdugo continued to cast a long shadow. But when it came to cartel leaders blurring the line between life and death, another figure would soon achieve an even more legendary status. Nazario Moreno Gonzalez, El Mas Loco, March 9, 2014. Deep in the mountains of Michoacan, Mexican Marines were closing in on a figure who, officially, was already dead. Nazario Moreno Gonzalez, known as El Mas Loco, the craziest one, had supposedly been killed in December 2010. The government of then-President Felipe Calderón had celebrated his death as a victory. There was just one problem. Moreno wasn't actually dead. For more than 3 years, the supernatural had walked among the living. Moreno continued to lead the Knights Templar cartel, a quasi-religious criminal organization evolved from La Familia Michoacana. He had achieved an almost mythical status, with shrines erected in his honor and his philosophical writings distributed throughout Michoacan. Moreno wasn't just a drug trafficker, he was a cult leader who had created an entire ideology around his cartel. The Knights Templar combined elements of evangelical Christianity, regional identity, and revolutionary populism with brutal enforcement of their criminal enterprises. Members swore allegiance in ceremonies involving drinking blood and wore white robes emblazoned with red crosses. The legend of El Mas Loco had only grown stronger after his supposed death. Some local residents believed he could appear in 2 places at once, or that he would descend from the mountains on a white horse. Others claimed he performed miracles. These stories weren't just superstition. They were a deliberate cultivation of a religious aura that helped maintain control. But on March 9, 2014, the myth would finally collide with reality. Acting on intelligence that Moreno was still alive, Mexican Marines confronted him near Tumbiscatio, Michoacan. When ordered to surrender, Moreno reportedly opened fire, leading to a shootout that ended with his death. His real death, this time. TT. Government took extraordinary measures to confirm his identity, including fingerprint verification and DNA testing. They even released photos of the body to quell any doubts. The confirmation of Moreno's death raised serious questions about the earlier claims by the Calderón administration. Had they known he was still alive? Was the 2010 announcement a deliberate deception or simply a case of mistaken identity? Moreno's actual death in 2014 dealt a significant blow to the Knights Templar. Without their charismatic leader and ideological founder, the organization began to fragment, further weakened by the rising power of civilian self-defense groups that had formed to combat cartel extortion and violence in Michoacan. Nazario Moreno Gonzalez's story is perhaps one of the strangest in the annals of Mexico's drug war. A man who leveraged faith, fear, and mythology to build a criminal empire, who died only to continue ruling from the shadows, and whose eventual confirmed death exposed the challenges and complexities of Mexico's fight against cartels. A decade later, the struggle against cartel power continued, with occasional victories for law enforcement even as the violence persisted. Jose El Chabelo, Isabel, December 15, 2024. The festive atmosphere of a cockfighting arena in Manzanillo, Colima, was shattered by gunfire as a routine police patrol erupted into one of the most violent confrontations of the year. At the center was Jose Isabel, known as El Chabelo, a regional leader of the Sinaloa cartel whose territorial control extended throughout Colima. The violence began when police officers encountered armed men behaving suspiciously near the cockfighting venue. What might have been a simple stop and question quickly escalated into a firefight as the men opened fire on the officers, triggering a response from additional police units. El Chabelo wasn't just any cartel operator. As a key figure in the Sinaloa cartel's operations in Colima, he oversaw drug shipments moving through the port of Manzanillo, one of Mexico's busiest maritime hubs and a critical node in the trans-Pacific drug trade. The shootout was brief but intense. When the gunfire ceased, El Chabelo lay dead alongside several of his associates. Police recovered an arsenal of weapons, including assault rifles, handguns, and tactical gear. What made this killing particularly significant was its timing. It came during a period of unprecedented violence in Sinaloa State, following the arrest of its founder, Ismael El Mayo Zambada, in July 2024. That arrest had triggered a wave of violence that claimed over 400 lives in Sinaloa alone, as factions within the once unified cartel fought for control. El Chabelo's death in neighboring Colima suggested that this internal conflict was spreading beyond Sinaloa's borders. The fact that he died in a confrontation with police, rather than at the hands of rival cartel members, indicated that law enforcement was taking advantage of the cartel's internal divisions to target previously untouchable leaders. In the aftermath, security in Manzanillo was significantly increased, with federal forces deployed to prevent retaliatory attacks. Local residents braced for what many feared would be an escalation in bloodshed, as the Sinaloa cartel sought to reassert control over this vital trafficking hub. For Mexican authorities, El Chabelo's death represented a tactical victory in their ongoing struggle against the cartels. Yet veterans of Mexico's drug war understood that such victories were often temporary temporary. For every cartel leader killed or captured, another typically emerged to take their place. The death of Jose El Chabelo Isabel would prove to be just one more chapter in the seemingly endless cycle of violence that has characterized Mexico's drug conflict for decades. As 2024 came to a close and 2025 began, the war continued unabated, claiming lives, destroying communities, and challenging the very foundations of Mexican society. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the boxes on your screen for more chilling content.